Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So many of you have been asking for an SJM update, and it's been a bit quiet on SJM's Father's blog. And in his most recent post, he said that he's done a lot of interviews and made a lot of public statements. So in lieu of all of that, he was just going to post some pictures of his son. But we're thirsty for the tea, so I went and dug it out, and I'm going to share what his thoughts are right now. If you're new to the channel and you don't know about the whole Pampohan River mystery where two medical students went to one of the very popular picnic spots here in Korea by the river in Seoul, and they mysteriously had only one person come back. And then 5 days later, SJM's father had to deal with the fact that his son passed away. So we're going to go into the latest developments on that case. So all that coming up, we will be right back. So most recently, SJM's father had an interview with the Digital Times, and then a few weeks ago, he had a very lengthy sit-down interview in front of a camera with a YouTuber named IYSS. So I'll put the links below. But let's start with the newspaper interview. That was the most recent, and the YouTube video has a lot more information. And the headline is that he can't die because everything is too unfair. Like, he has to keep on going, he has to keep on fighting, and he has to keep on trying to get the truth. Now, it's very clear now how he views the police in basically the worst light ever for blocking the evidence, manipulating the evidence, and he's actually making an accusation that there is a possibility that they even destroyed evidence with the CCTVs. So he's in the middle of a lawsuit right now, and he is trying to get access to the CCTV cameras that are located on the Olympic Expressway. So these cameras apparently would have had a view of the incident area, but its location is even further back from the famous CCTV camera footage that we've been solely relying on, which is essentially just the entrance to the Pampohan River Park. But it would give a clearer angle because, we had to go through all the trees and stuff. It would give a clearer angle as to the movements of bodies. And so the police were really railroading him on that. So he said he had no other choice but to file a lawsuit to try to get access to those tapes. That was back in October of last year in 2021. And so now it looks like in August or September we'll get the final ruling from the judge. But in this newspaper article, he says that he calls out his son's name hundreds of times a day because he still feels like his son is alive, and he's still trying to grapple with the fact that his son is gone. And he says that now he understands the pain of when people suddenly lose their children. He says that, he wants to die, but he can't die because it's unfair. The only reason that he's living is because it's so unfair, he has to keep going. And so he's definitely a fighter and definitely a person, I think, who has been really well situated to try to bring more attention and fight for change. And he has some very great conclusions about the whole system after living through it. So in a nutshell, if you haven't seen the case yet, and to give a little bit of a recap, back in April 25th of 2021, Jung Min, his son, and Mr. A, the chief suspect who really wasn't officially a suspect, but everyone treated him as a suspect that we needed to get off and make sure he wasn't guilty. Well, the two went to the Pampohan River Park to basically drink. Mr. A contacted SJM, who was busy studying, saying like, "Hey, I'm partying with my friends, but they just want to go home, and I don't want to go home. I want to drink some more. Like, hey, do you want to hang out?" And then SJM was like, "Now? Like, it's really late," because it was like already like 10 p.m. And then somehow Mr. A convinced SJM, "Oh yeah, let's just go. Let's just because of like the whole Miss Corona thing, we can't really go anywhere because that's where that's why everyone was going home at 10 because everything shut down. But you can go still to the riverside and just have like a picnic and have some like beer or soju and snacks." And so SJM was like, "Okay, fine, I'll go." They go, but only Mr. A comes back and SJM has gone missing. And they're like, "Mr. A, where did SJM go?" And it was just excuse after excuse and shadiness after shadiness. And mainly it looked like it was like the police was on their side, like covering up for them. And, sometimes that sounds like a little bit like bold to say, but if you just look at some of the behavior, it's just like, wow. Like nobody would ever get that. Like nobody would get this kind of, VIP treatment, I guess, if you could call it, on that side. And from SJM's father's side, the nice way to say would be incompetence, because he's basically saying it's incompetence, and he's basically kind of stopping at that level. But most YouTubers, most people who are looking at this, even journalists, are saying like, looks like a little bit or a lot of corruption. So SJM's body was found on April 30th, and then on the 13th of May, the National Forensics Research Institute said that the cause of death was drowning. But yeah, but how did he drown? And did he drown on his own accord, or was there somebody else involved? Glossed over. Remember, at the end of May was the mid-investigation police report, and then Hot Daddy's show that seemed to support everything on the police side to manipulate the evidence, the shady fisherman. Then on June 29th of 2021, the police said, "Okay, well, we're gonna wrap up our internal investigation because it looks like there's no evidence of anything shady going on over here." So there were no criminal charges filed because they said that there was no evidence of murder. Mr. Son had made an appeal in October of that year, and that's when he really upped the ante officially, because he actually filed charges himself, like a citizen's charge, and then for the police to determine whether the charges would stick. But he basically said that he was accusing Mr. A, because he was dancing around this whole thing until, for a while, like trying not to like accuse his son's friend and family. But yeah, no, now he's sure. And he's saying that he wanted to charge Mr. A with abandonment, because, even if he didn't do anything wrong, he abandoned his friend, and then like his friend eventually passed away. And assault, like manslaughter, because there was a lot of video evidence showing that there was like some sort of physical confrontation, or at least like some sort of physical like bodies like jumping or being dumped over the riverbank. And that's the 331 video, if that means anything to you. So the CCTV footage that would show more of the 331, and then even like now, like 1:48 a.m., those videos, it would be solved, or pretty much, if we had the video footage from the Pampo Bridge. That would be the clearest, the closest. But the police said, "Oh, we already deleted that." And then the footage right now that's under question with the lawsuit is from way over there, from the highway, the Olympic Expressway. But during the trial, the police said, "Oh, we deleted that." And that sent SJM's father up the wall, because he's saying basically like, look, y'all told me that, oh, well, you shouldn't be, watching that video, but we'll give you a chance to watch it because we can't release the video because of personal privacy reasons. Yeah, but then why do we see everybody from the video that was released from the bunny tunnel entrance? We saw everybody's faces and what they were doing. Remember the girls that were fighting and then just like, not fighting, but like, those girls were super sus, but you could tell exactly what they were wearing. They were just like stumbling over. Anyhow, that was a very poor excuse according to SJM's father, because yeah, obviously we've seen that, but from the distance from the highway you cannot distinguish anybody's faces. The forensic value of that video would be matching the movements and getting a clearer picture of who was where, when, and how they got over to the river, or if they came back up and down, all those kind of details. So you wouldn't be able to see anybody's faces. So he's saying that was BS. And then SJM's father said the police said, oh, we can't release this video because once it gets out there, all those crazy YouTubers are gonna make things like really strange, like so vague. And SJM's father was just like, the stuff that comes out of the police people's mouths is just like nonsense. So then the police said like, yeah, but we'll let you watch it. We can't give you a copy of it, but you can come in and watch it. So he's like, okay, fine. Every single time he tries to set up a time, they're like, oh, sorry, all of the police force there, we're going to be going on a workshop that day. Sorry, we'll have to reschedule. And then he even said like one time, like they responded saying like, you're coming here too often and you can't request the same video, like so many times. Are you kidding me? Like that time period at minimum is 7 hours. Just to even watch it one time through, you're gonna need several times, and then more than that to analyze it. And so obviously they didn't want him to see it. Even when he was able to watch some other CCTV footage, the day where they were doing the mid-investigation police report and they conned him to come into the police station so they would be far away from the press conference and out of sight. Well, he said that he was only there for a maximum of like 5 hours looking through it, and it was like grainy, and they set it up on all like this old janky machine so that you can't even see anything. And then he said that the police like spun it to the media saying like, oh, the bereaved family spent like 6.5 hours looking through the CCTV. So it's not as if like you can maybe let go of certain details here or there, but it's the volition, it's the heavy-handedness of the police spinning it out of the victim's favor and way into Mr. A's favor, where it seems like they were crossing like lines they didn't need to cross, and they were just being extra on stuff they didn't need to be so bold about, unless they were really desperate to make sure that I'll call him their client, that their client was going to be free and clear. So how would you like that, in your neck of the woods, where like your Justice Department, police department takes you on as a client if you are a criminal, and if you pay the right price, then hey, you can get through any kind of loophole. Because that's what SJM's father said was the really unfortunate part of his whole experience with this, what kind of message it sends to society. Basically, like, if you can manufacture enough loopholes, anybody can get through, anybody can get away with crime. So SJM's father, when he was doing this interview, he started out by saying like, this whole case made him wonder, is there any justice in this world? And that when you are so powerless, the options available to you to make choices are extremely limited. And I would say I would concur with my experience here in the Korean justice system, because I kind of went like being like, I really want to know, is there justice in the justice system? No. It's just a way to like make the long story short. And what I found was shocking. The most shocking is that, like, it's not necessarily the person who did you wrong, like them getting off with it as like the reason why there's no justice. It's all the people in the machinery that corrupt themselves or go along with the corrupted party and then make you look like you're the bad one. That makes it feel like there's really no justice. And so I think he was seeing like left and right, working with these police officers in the beginning, trusting them and even being told to trust them, just, chill out in May, we got this, that's what the police were saying. All the while they were working behind his back to make sure by the end of May, this dude would just, have to like be shuttled home and like never have to say another word about his son. But hey, that is not how it played out, because the nation's eyes were on this case and were really feeling like there is something fishy going on. When the investigation first started, remember, the first thing was really odd. His son was registered as like a runaway teenage girl. So somebody from that division came over to help him, and he said all we needed to do was immediately go and get the CCTV footage, because that stuff gets erased on a very regular basis. And he said that like the person that they sent didn't even know where the CCTVs were, so that slowed the process. Seemed a little bit convenient. And then even when they did find the CCTVs, a lot of the times they would get the response, "Oh, it's already been deleted." Seems a little convenient. And then he said when we did find some footage, or if we were to find some footage, there needed to be people who are experts who would go through it and, do all of their forensics things on it. And he said there was nobody. So he's like, then what is this? Like, he's doing all of the work, and there's this other person who's from the police station, like, slowing him down. And then even if they got the CCTV footage, he was saying like, he was told like, oh, well, like, nobody can really look at it. Like, we can't look through that. Like, we can't analyze that. So he's just like, then what are you guys all doing here? Like, what is this? Like, so he said like, that was the first time where he's just thinking like, geez, like the talent or skill level of the police are highly, highly sus. But where it really got to him was after his son was discovered. Immediately, the police said, "Oh, those wounds." Like, how'd they know immediately that there were wounds? Unless they were talking to Mr. A and his family. But they were like, "Oh, those wounds on the back of his head were probably from, like, him drifting in the river and, scraping up against rocks. They're nothing big, nothing serious." Yeah, later we saw those scars and the wounds. It was horrible. Like, if you had that level of wound, you would freak out. Any one of you would freak out, be running to the emergency room saying like, "Doctor, sew me up," or something like that, because that was like, oh my gosh, like opening a book or something. And so he said that was really concerning, that they would say that even before the autopsy. And then when the autopsy did come out, it did say that those wounds were made on SJM's head while he was still alive. So that totally contradicts the police saying like, oh, he just got it after he, drowned, and then he was just like floating around in the river for 5 days. Of course, you're going to get some cuts and scrapes. So he's just like, that did not add up. And then he said that was like the first time he felt like, wow, the police get to say whatever they want to say, even if it contradicts with reports, evidence, and whatever they say is the final say that everybody believes and that the media reports. So then he was asked, how did the police respond to that suspicious part in the CCTV footage, especially the 3:31 a.m. video where you see like two bodies like being like thrown over the riverbank, either like one person got pushed and then the next one jumped, or maybe Mr. A threw an unconscious SJM over and then he followed. In any way, shape, or form, that was a very suspicious part of the video. And he said that the police said that, yeah, that does look strange. It looks strange. And so he said, like, you know, from Mr. A, they had nothing up until that point because Mr. A just kept saying, I can't remember because I was so drunk, like for like 8 hours. He can't remember a thing except for key moments that help his, you know, positioning. And so he thought that the police would take it further. In any event, he thought that this would show up in the mid-investigation police report. Remember, there was never a final police investigation report filed, only the mid-investigation police report, and this footage never ever showed up because it would conflict with the narrative that basically SJM just like walked into the river and then just drowned, you know, with like wounds on his head. So he said that the Socho police chief was aware of the 331 video and how sus it looked because he had an informer, but nothing. And so he was really upset by that because he also was aware by that time that there was footage from the Pampo Bridge. And the Pampo Bridge footage, hey, if somebody has a copy of that, you know, because, you know, we don't believe that it's really deleted, that would solve everything. And then he also knew that the Olympic Road footage was being withheld from him by the police. So around August 20th, he asked to see those videos, and then he said like they basically made it so janky with like, you know, cracked screens and just like small monitors and like cables that went to nowhere, that was like frizzing out, like not letting him see an accurate view of the video. And then of course he said like, oh yeah, they did a media play where they're like, oh, the bereaved family came in again and watched hours and hours of the video. But remember like when we were like suspicious of like Mr. A and his family returning the next morning, and then a possible like cleanup crew that they might have hired like kind of wandering around. Well, the police said, oh, we can't show you that because that's outside of the time frame of this incident. And then they were just like, no, this incident goes on until the morning. Like, but so every kind of like little tricky twist and turn to kind of like block progress, total like the definition of just cock blocking. That's what this police department was doing to SJM's family, and especially his father. So what about the 3:37 a.m. photo of Mr. A talking on the phone with his family? That was so coincidental. If we didn't have that photo, like, we really wouldn't, I think, be here right now, because that was such a critical proof against Mr. A, making them look very guilty. And it was just like random, like somebody was at that time just taking a picture of the moon. And if you're also wondering the way I was wondering, like, you know, why are all these people at the park at 3 or 4 a.m.? Like, yeah, they're there all the time. They, like, you know, you see the CCTV footage, you can see it on my channel, the full like 9 hours of surveillance. There are people being there like all the time, you know, all the way up until the morning where the joggers are coming. So Mr. A and his family did not reveal that they had been speaking on the phone at 3:37 a.m. And when confronted with that, remember, Mr. A's mother suddenly had like a breakdown. So I guess that was a very sensitive and critical call. However, their lawyers said that, oh, that call? Well, basically, Mr. A said, oh, I can't come home yet because SJM is just drunk and asleep and I can't wake him up. And then the lawyer said, oh, the parents just responded, well, hurry up and wake him up so that you can hurry up and come on home. You know, very innocent sounding. But that is not the way that SJM's father thought that conversation really went. Because especially from the photo, he's saying like, if Mr. A was saying like, oh dude, my friend is just like here and asleep and I can't wake him up, then where is SJM? SJM is nowhere to be seen, and this dude looks like he's just ready to bolt with his backpack on. And this is when SJM's father says like, you know, my son's probably already in the river or on the river bank. Like, he is not definitely on the lawn. And even Mr. A had testified that they were together on the lawn, and then that he like fell asleep again, but then like he woke up later, and then he found SJM missing. So again, about the CCTV footage that's in question about the Olympic Expressway, at a recent trial or hearing with the judge said, okay, fine, let me see the Olympic Expressway CCTV footage first. And then the police were like, oh, sorry, we deleted it. And that's when I said, like, you know, SJM's father got really mad, because basically he's saying like, look, you guys were like cock blocking me from that footage all summer. And then by October, I had no choice but to sue you guys to get access to it. So if you had told me you had already deleted it before I sued you, then I would not even go through this process, because why would I sue you to get access to something that you've already thrown out? So he's saying like, that's shady. But what's shadier is that they probably didn't. They probably didn't delete it. And then after he sued, they probably deleted it. And he's saying like, that is destruction of evidence. And he was saying like, that was so shocking to see how brazen they were in front of the judge, basically saying like, oh, sorry, we deleted it. And that he's thinking that that's basically their strategy, that if the police win, then it doesn't matter, it's game over. Like, they don't have to show SJM's father anything. But if SJM's father wins, they already have planted the seed of information out there that the footage has been deleted, so that when SJM's father goes to the police station saying like, okay, I won the lawsuit, show me the video, they can be like, oh, sorry, didn't we already tell you during one of the hearings the footage has been deleted? Everything sounds so convenient. And y'all know in Korea, things don't work out this convenient, you know? Like, it's just way too convenient on one side. Like, it doesn't work that way unless there's a plan. And the sad thing, he said, was that those pixels that they are denying me are the last images of his son. And he just wants to see them. And he's saying like, wow, do the police have to go to these types of lengths just for this? And he said that basically, like, you know, what he's been able to conclude from this whole experience was that the police, they are not interested in finding out the truth or the investigation. They're just there for their own careers. And he found that to be extremely troubling, especially when he thought that they like basically have no ability. So then he was asked about the police's decision to end their internal investigation. And then he said like, this was so odd, because first of all, they said that the mid-investigation police report was enough. Like basically everything we needed to know, we don't need to make a final report, everything's in the mid-investigation police report. But he's saying like, look, even in the mid-investigation police report, it says throughout the report saying like, okay, testimonies and the evidence don't match up in these cases right now, so further investigation is needed. Well, he said like, well, okay, if you're going to conclude the investigation, at least give us what you concluded from your further investigation on when things didn't match up in the mid-investigation police report. Nothing. They brought nothing to that. So, ironically, during this whole case, the battle between the prosecutors and police were heating up about who gets to have investigative authority. Because when you are in supposedly a system of law and democracy, evidence is what gets you convicted. Like, you know, innocent before guilty. What makes you guilty? It has to be evidence. And he who controls the gathering of evidence has a lot of power, especially if you want to be corrupt with that power. You can eliminate evidence, or you can highlight evidence, and mainly basically eliminate or destroy evidence, or not even collect it to begin with, because you know how the system works. And so mainly the prosecutors have had the final say in the evidence. Like, they would kind of like use the police as kind of like the initial gatherers, and then they'd be like, okay, police, you have to give everything you have over to us. We'll take it from here. You know, thank you for your labor, but now you have no say. And so the prosecution got a little bit corrupt by doing that. And mainly they represent more of the elite, and then the police represent a little more of the working class. But both are corrupt, and both just want to get their hands into the piggy bank and just, like, you know, abuse their power, as we have seen clearly from their behavior on both sides. But during this time, the police were getting more investigative power. Like, the public was more on the side of the police because, you know, this kind of stuff was like less highlighted than some of the prosecutorial corruption. And so the police were kind of like in a good light with the public. But then SJM's father is saying, like, look, like, I've seen their incompetence. I have seen how they really don't know what they're doing with their job, and they're not good investigators. So if they get more investigative powers, then they would have to really reinforce the training and the quality. And he says, like, none of that is happening. What they're chasing over there in the police is power, and that the main people who suffer from that sort of like power grab are ordinary people who are just like him, who lose people and get no justice because there is no proper investigation. There's no proper police department that is on the side of the people. It's just for their careers and then for their own self-gain. I could tell you, like, from my experience in the court system, it's for their own careers and they're for their own self-gain when you're talking about the judges. And then the prosecutors themselves, yeah, careers and own self-gain. It was like the whole thing is set up where you're supposed to be the customer, right, as the person who is trying to get justice in the Justice Department, but you're just watching like a whole like Candyland go round and round where it's all about people's careers. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, I didn't here to come watch your career or to help contribute to you getting promoted, or, you know, have me stepped on because it would hurt your chances at a promotion. All right, I'll catch you on the back end, okay? I will catch you on the back end. So moving forward though, you know, what I found was really odd because, like, you know, we're looking at some of the other true crime and mystery cases here in Korea, right? Whenever there's something very suspicious, and even the police do this, like, you know, when the police do their job correctly, they actually do their job. So I think sometimes incompetence is not the accurate word, but it's the polite thing to say instead of just calling them corrupt. They do a good job when they do their job. And so, like, you know, when we were talking about some of the other cases where the police really wanted to find like the culprit, they would start investigating the people around the victim or perpetrator to collect more information. And oddly enough, in this case, none of that seemed to have happened. Maybe in like one of a TV interview, there was like one or two acquaintances that may have come and just given an interview, but the police did not investigate the friends, the family, the circumstances around this whole case. They really didn't. And I thought that was very, very odd, because in other cases, in other situations, you would really question the friends. You would go into the mobile phone and messaging. I mean, they had all of that, but then with this case, remember, they were saying like, oh, SJM's phone shows nothing. All that data usage, that was probably just background data usage, apps updating themselves, but without proving that it was the apps updating themselves. And then Mr. A's phone suddenly goes missing for a few weeks, and then suddenly it gets dropped onto the lawn where people were like searching every day, like police people were searching every day, and suddenly gets dropped on the lawn. And then supposedly a sanitation worker had found it and just put it in his locker for weeks. But then he said, oh wait, no, it was a few days. Oh wait, was it supposed to be a few weeks? You know, he had to call in and check to see what the story, was supposed to be. So again, this just highlights so much, and just kind of like, at least for me, makes me remember like those feelings of like, wow, when there's no justice, man, it's not necessarily about like who did you wrong. It's like all the people who don't seem to care, or the people who are all somehow in on it because they're only looking out for themselves. But I'm telling you, what goes around comes around. You never think it can happen to you. I don't wish the worst on you, but you gotta be prepared for it. Anyhow, guys, what do you think? I mean, very, very tough situation for SJM's father to be in, but I'm very proud that he is out there fighting. What would you do in this situation? Put your comments below, and remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye, guys.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.